Hey up everybody, my name is Joshua Morrison, director of Jonny Mozza's Lessons in Confidence, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about budget, because for every low budget film that you see out there, you'll look at it, you think, oh, this looks so cheap, this looks so easy to make, and then you start looking into the behind the scenes, you start seeing the crew, and there's 15 people on the set. They've got a gaffer and a runner and a DOP and a camera assistant and 2 sound guys, sound mixer and a boom operator. And you've got the director and you've got the producer and you've got all these various roles, right? And then you start hearing about what they were looking at in terms of budget, and they'll be spending thousands of pounds on this film whilst also calling it no budget, right? So you've got these films that, like Clerks for instance, that cost £30,000, and it's a film that was made by people that were very new to the industry, people that were very passionate about their craft, and people that were trying extremely hard to make some true artistic expression, right? And I think they did an incredible job with it. However, and this is something that has gotten better over time, that film cost somewhere in the realm of about £30,000 to make. And it feels like if you don't have much money, you shouldn't be allowed to create art. That's kind of how it can often feel for people that have very little in the way of resources, people that might not even have, say, the equipment that I've got. I've got a Canon C100 Mark I that cost £600 on eBay. And that was really cheap. That was doing the bids. I did the bids and no one else bid for it, so I got quite lucky in that regard. And then the lenses cost more on top of that, and then the batteries cost £50 a pop. And then, if I was doing lights, I would have light stands either side. That's another 200 quid to go on that. And then if you want sound, you're looking at £200 for a microphone minimum. And then you're looking at, some kind of boom pole, and boom poles can get up to about 80 quid. And then you've got like something to record it into, and the cheapest ones of those are about 150 quid. And then you've got, little boards and stuff. A clapper board can be a tenner. And then you've got, the soft boxes sort of things, those can cost money. And then there's this thing that you put on a microphone called a blimp. And it's basically for if it's very, very, very windy out, right? And this is basically just a structure of foam with a small semi-vacuum kind of thing inside, which stops wind actually getting in. And if you want to get one of those, which is just, again, some foam with nothing on it, £250. Which is, I think that's a hell of a steal from their point of view. Not from your point of view. From your point of view, it's a total con, right? All of these various pieces of equipment cost so much money. And then you're looking at locations. Those cost money to actually rent out. If you want somewhere that looks decent, if you want to have places that are other than just your house and your garden and your local park and just these things that you have immediate access to. So if you want to tell stories outside of this scope, you can't. Okay? And that's just the way that the world works, right? And it feels sort of like, as you kind of go through your journey of making films, you've always got to work within your limitations. And that is a very useful way of creating, because you can create much better stuff if you don't have absolute total creative freedom. You can do stuff that you could never have imagined doing if you had total unlimited freedom. I mean, look at the budgets of stuff like the new Star Wars and the new Avengers and the new Transformers and $200, $300 million budgets. And what they get out of them is not necessarily 500,000 times as good as the latest folk film that's come out with a budget of about 200 quid. Is it really 500,000 times better? I don't think so. And I feel like everyone is going to see these films because they have this accessibility to them, because the history of cinema has always favoured the wealthy and the rich to create. It has always been an institution ever since the 1910s when Hollywood first began and institutionalized filmmaking started taking off, and you started having production companies and everything started working that way. I mean, the beginning of acting in film as a career started off as this extremely just poor working conditions and really disgusting contracts. There was this thing called, I believe it was a lifestyle contract. I can't remember who the actress was, but it was just like a silent movie actress. And some of the things that were on it included, she had to be in bed by midnight every night. She wasn't allowed to go out on Saturdays, and she had to stick to a very strict diet of like certain healthy foods and stuff like that. She couldn't smoke, she couldn't drink, she couldn't do any of these sort of things. So even in her off time, she was required to do these things by the production company, which essentially owned her. They paid her actors tended to get shafted in those days because actors were owned by singular production companies, and so they didn't get to take home all of the money. And in the late 1930s and early 40s, unions for actors, the SAG and I think it's the SAG, and other unions like that started to take off and start providing actors with more workers' rights. And I think this led to a system of almost industrial scale filmmaking, when you've got stuff like the typical David Lean epic, or you've got stuff like Lawrence of Arabia, and you've got Dr. Zhivago, and you've got Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments, and all these various 3-hour films that are huge. Gone with the Wind is an earlier example. You got so many of these films that were absolutely massive in scale that no one person could make on their own. So these are stories that, if you do not have the resources, are kind of out of your reach, and you're told not to try and pursue these kind of stories because you don't have the resources to actually make them work. Now, I have an issue with the fact that we as small independent creators have very little in the way of distribution potential. And this is in an era where we have the most potential for distribution that we have ever had. No more do we need to hope for a production house to take us on board and chuck $200,000 into post-production, as happened with Peter Jackson's directorial debut Bad Taste, which was a film that, again, cost somewhere in the realm of $7,000 if you disregard the post-production money. So $7,000, right? New Zealand, so call it, I don't know, $4,000, let's say $5,000 just to make it even, right? And that is a film that looks so bad by our current standards because of our approach as audience members to film. We expect perfect cinematography, we expect perfect sound, we expect there to not be like a little shadow here on the corner of the face, and we expect all of this to kind of, aesthetic kind of stuff to be deeply rooted into whatever we make, even if we are trying to tell quite an ugly and down-to-earth quite story about people just like yourself and just like me that have very little money, that are just bumming around trying to do the best they can. And I have an issue with the fact that as filmmakers and as creatives in general, we are pushed to make a certain kind of thing with the resources that we have available to us. What do we have access to? We have access to our friends, we have access to, anyone that can come down for free. We have access to, the few locations that we have. Maybe if you go to a pub quite frequently, you can get access to that. But even then, that's something that requires an awful lot of money, because you need to go to the pub and create a rapport with the pub landlord, with the managers, with the staff. So you need to go in there and buy pints again and again and again and actually stay there. And it is nice to live in that sort of pub community, but at the same time, in an economy where it costs about £4 per pint minimum, that is not sustainable for the average broke person like myself. So a lot of artists are pushed towards certain forms of expression. So we are often pushed away from filmmaking and pushed towards stuff like writing novels and writing non-fiction, or drawing or painting and stuff like this. Whereas other forms of art, like music and like film and like theatre, are something that you can do only if you have the resources to do them. And the reason that it's been like this, and it's been getting more like this in the past sort of 20 years, is because we have had a big issue with our own workers' rights slowly being eroded over the past 40, 50 years in the United Kingdom at least. Different story for America. I don't know exactly what the story is there. Some Americans can sort of fill me in on what's going on over there. So yeah, I just think that I don't have a solution to any of this. I am just venting, I am just ranting, and I don't have all the answers, and I don't have a solution to this. And it certainly is, the politics of envy slightly, what I'm talking about, oh, I don't have the resources to make what I want to make. Why doesn't someone just give me the resources? And it's, like I haven't earned those resources. I haven't earned that because I haven't had the track record to actually do those kind of things. Whereas certain other artists have had that track record where people actually want to invest in them. But I think part of the problem is that because the audience has been had it drilled into them to expect high production value, to expect lots of actors in the background, to expect everything to sort of go along perfectly and to feel like some kind of a higher version of real life, which is slightly better than real life, rather than just capturing the reality as it actually happens. It's not good enough to just have audio like this. You need to have a boom pole up ahead, so that means you need to get sound guys in. Sound guys are expensive, sound guys, and even some of the sound guys that I've worked with in the past, as amazing as they've been, it changes the nature of a film set to make it more of this business, workplace-like thing, rather than this small, creative playground to actually kind of do what you want to do. And I feel like low-budget filmmaking has an awful lot to offer in terms of freeing the creator up to tell the story that they want to tell, just simply down to the fact that you can do things on the fly. You can make things as you go along, rather than having to have everything planned out beforehand, which, I've said it before, it sterilizes the film that you're actually making. It sterilizes what you're trying to create, and it sterilizes the end product, because you've put so much effort into making it all look so crisp and clean and slick and perfect. And I don't particularly like that, and I don't particularly think that it's the way forwards. I see the way forwards in film being a democratized world where, in terms of the film community, where people can come together on a much smaller scale and make films with maybe just a couple people, just doing a couple little things, and just doing small scale projects that can tell very large stories. If you want to make a sci-fi thing, you could do like some stop motion kind of thing. It doesn't have to be at 30 frames a second, 24 frames a second, or 12 frames a second. You could do it at like 6 frames a second. As long as you're telling an interesting tale and a captivating story with an interesting narrative and characters, then you've kind of got everything that you need. And the fact that it doesn't look like a big Hollywood set is not the important thing. Some people kind of like the cheesy, small-scale budget kind of thing, because it adds so much to the charm of what's going on, and I see that as the future. We've got a charming world of film ahead of us, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I do have positive opinions on the future of film. I do think it's going to go in a good direction with the slow decline of the Hollywood system and the incline, the mass adoption of small-scale filmmaking, which has started already via YouTube, via TikTok, and all these other things, where people make what they want to make on a small scale and they put it out to the world themselves, doing it that way. But we still have a long way to go, and I really hope that we can continue this trend and actually continue to go in a positive direction, because I do think that we are going in a positive direction. I don't want this to be a video about moaning, because I have issues that I have with the industry at large, but I think they're slowly, very slowly being rectified, and I hope for future generations that they will be able to create very freely and do what they want to do. So yeah, that's going to be all from me. Thank you so much for watching this. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and just, yeah, go out there and create, and don't let your limitations bog you down, because we have a good future ahead of us as creatives. And yeah, if you've been told, don't make a film, write a book. If you find yourself enjoying writing the book, yeah, write the book. But if you really feel this passion and this drive to make the film, then make it. That's going to be all. Take care. Bye-bye. I had to have these on because it's fucking, the sun's there. There we are. Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Jonny Mozza's Lessons in Confidence, and today I thought I would talk a little bit around film versus music versus books, and what kind of method you want to use to create your art and to express yourself. So, there's many different forms of entertainment out there. You've got books, you've got television, you've got film, you've got music, you've got theatre. You could just write the plays and not even expect them to be performed. You could carve out little drawings on the side of caves. There's all kinds of things that you can do to express yourself in various ways that can be preserved for either a short amount of time, like for other people to see in the case of theatre, or for forever in the case of a recorded piece of media, like a recorded song or even a recorded performance of a theatre production. So I specialise in film. I started off in film, but I slowly gravitated towards doing music, and there was a few reasons for that. One was that film is a very collaborative kind of thing, and I'm not a particularly big people person. I'm not someone who goes out and talks to a lot of people. I can be quite insular if I want to be. And that's part of what Jonny Mozza's Lessons in Confidence is about addressing, is that it's lessons in confidence for myself. Hence why I kind of do these videos as well, because it encourages me to be more confident and to be more forthright with my worldview and the way that I see things. And I started doing music instead because it was something I could do entirely on my own, entirely from the comfort of my own home, and something that you could do quickly. Like with a film, if you want to really put together a proper film, you know, with, you know, proper actors and a proper script and get everything prepared beforehand, and you have all this extra paperwork and stuff that you got to do, it's all things that really bog you down and start to drag you away from the art. And then you're on the set directing, and it feels like you're starting to get away from the art, and editing video to me can sometimes, after a while, just become a technical, mechanical process, more like engineering than like a form of creativity. And I wanted to move away from that kind of thing. And that's why, for one, I've started doing Jonny Mozza's Lessons in Confidence in a much different way from all my previous films. But second off, I thought it would be really interesting to combine both my love of music and my love of film with this project. But as to why I started doing music, I could do it from the comfort of my own home, and I could do it quickly. So I could come up with the idea for a song. I could think, I want a song that goes dun 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 wow, you know, and then I could figure out how to play that on the guitar, figure out a way to make that sound interesting on a bass, decide if I want some keyboards on it, and then bam, I've recorded it, and it's taken not much longer than the song actually is. Like if I want to make a 5-minute song, it'll probably take me about minimum an hour, maximum maybe 3 hours. I like my longer songs. A lot of my songs are 7+ minutes. Some of them gravitate closer to the 20-minute mark. And that's because that's sort of who I am. All my favorite songs are long. My ultimate favorite song, that I think will be my ultimate favorite song for the rest of my life, possibly, I'm not sure yet, is Echoes by Pink Floyd. And another ones I like are Anesthetize by Porcupine Tree, In the Name of God by Dream Theater, Homesick Parts 1 through 3 by Airbag, Again by Archive. These are all very long songs. Dogs, all their animals really. These are all very long suites of music, and they take you on a journey in a very interesting way, and a new way for each of them. All of those songs are quite distinct from each other, even though they all kind of fall under the same umbrella of progressive rock in some form or another. But they all manage to do such different things with their combinations of guitars and keyboards and drums and bass. And I like to do my own experiments in that same field. I did a song, for instance, a few months ago called Kalashnikov, which is this 17-minute combination of krautrock, my love of krautrock, and then my love of progressive rock. So I kind of combined those two fields. And I'm doing stuff that I know is not, you know, commercial. I'm not doing any of this stuff for views, and I know that no one's going to listen to a 16-minute song from a nobody. But I enjoy that kind of music, so I'm making the music that feels right to me, and I'm not trying to chase anything else other than that. And I don't want to commercialize my music because and turn my music into a career, because to me the music is such a fun hobby of mine, and I don't want it to be anything more than that. I actively would rather it be a hobby than to, I think my dream job is to be someone who records live gigs. You know, like you go to a live gig, say you go to see the Oasis reunion next year, and you know how they'll have the little screens. If you're so far away, you can't actually see them, so they'll put them up on these giant screens. I'd like to be one of the people recording the videos for those screens. That looks like a lot of fun to me. Just to get paid to go and do what I love, which is filming. I love filming. Like, this is why I've set the camera up like this. I've got the camera so far away from me. And this took so many goes of me going up and down the stairs, up and down the stairs. It took me about 20 minutes to set this shot up, sort of shifting. Should I do it a bit over here? Should I do it a bit over here? Is it in focus? Is the top of my head in? I'm really, like, I can't bend up too much like that. You see how it kind of cuts the top of my head off, so I'm kind of leaning a little bit like that. I'm doing this quite a long lens, so it's given kind of a fun feel. I like doing that, and it's a passion of mine, and it's a passion that I wouldn't mind commercializing. But for me, music is something that's very dear to me, and something that's very truly part of my soul. I never was super into music as a kid. I was raised on Metallica's like self-titled Master Puppets, and I think that's about it. And then I liked video game soundtracks, and then as I became a teenager, I liked a little bit of Eminem, not much. I got into Nightcore. Remember when Nightcore was a thing? It's basically just like the you know, the slowed and reverbed thing. It's basically the opposite of that. So I kind of enjoyed that kind of music. I wasn't, you know, an aficionado of music or anything. I think I started really getting into music when I went out with my first girlfriend, and she was very into her music. She showed me a lot of different styles of music, none of which have really stuck with me, like, because we had quite different tastes in music. She was very into like post-punk, and I'm not super into post-punk. But it helped me to find a love of bands and a love of live music in particular, and live music is something that's really stuck with me. And it's really kind of embarrassing to actually admit this, but the reason I started learning to play the guitar was because her ex-boyfriend played the guitar, and I was like, oh God, that means he's better than me. I'm going to learn the guitar and I'll be better than him. So I started learning the guitar, and for the first 4 years I was god awful, but I just kept going away at it. And after, you know, a couple of months, I wasn't even doing it to try and be better than that ex-boyfriend. I was just doing it because I really enjoyed it. And now I look at myself playing the guitar and I think, like, God, imagine if I couldn't play this thing, how much more empty my life would be. And I really do think that if you're in the creative field, if you're someone who is truly creative through and through, and you've spent all your life making stuff and you want to make stuff until you die, pick up an instrument, because it really does add something to you, not necessarily to like your personality or anything. It doesn't make you like a more interesting person just because you can play a fucking guitar or a keyboard or whatever, but it will help you express yourself in new ways. And, you know, even if you just sit around and you just noodle on the guitar, you can make some really fun stuff, and you can just enjoy it, and it can be something that's for you. And I really think that you should pursue music, not necessarily as a full-time thing, but if you're into film, you should also give music a try, because there's a fair few transferable skills from film to music and from music to film. Like microphone placement, for instance, is something that's quite important with recording music. Arrangement is and composition is fairly similar to editing, and you can, if you wanted to make, for instance, kind of electronic kind of sample-based music, you would basically just be editing with audio and doing the kind of sound design that you might already do when you edit your videos and your films at the moment. As well, it also encourages you to find new types of music, because you'll always be looking for a new inspiration and a new thing that you know, gives you kind of a true sensation that goes through your body and makes the hairs on your arm sort of go up like that. I've started listening to so much more music since I started composing music. And what's also really fun is being able to listen to your own music back when you've recorded it and you've listened to it back, and you can just sit back with the headphones on and you can just go, oh wow. And in the back of your mind, you're just like, fucking hell, I made that bit of music. If it weren't for me, if I weren't born, this wouldn't exist. And that's something that's really fun as well. Yeah, I would really recommend you try music. Just pick up a guitar, or, you know, if you don't have a guitar laying around, just you can buy them pretty cheap. You can get them at Cash Converters or CEX. I don't think you can get them at CEX. Get them at whatever your shop is, because you probably don't live in the UK. You know, is Target like Cash Converters? I'm not sure. No, I think Target is more like Argos, isn't it? Walmart will probably have something. You've got thrift stores instead of charity shops, so go to your local thrift store and try and find a guitar for like 10, 20 bucks, something like that, and you'll find something fun. Or it doesn't have to be guitar. You might not feel drawn to the guitar. You might feel drawn to, you know, the bass. Or even if you can't get an instrument, say you've got no money whatsoever, say you've just got your phone, you can get GarageBand, or there's probably an Android equivalent of GarageBand, and you can just compose stuff with MIDI and just have fun coming out with little tunes, like little. Maybe you're not into live sound sort of stuff like I am. Maybe you're more into your chiptune sort of stuff. I know a lot of people are really into that kind of sound, like the NES kind of, or SNES, or like Sega sort of Mega Drive kind of sound. You know, people like that kind of thing. I think it's all right. It's cool. It's a fun way of composing. I've not really done much of it, but it's certainly an accessible way of doing it. You don't need an instrument or anything. You could just do it with GarageBand or whatever the equivalent is. If you've got a laptop, you can get there's a mosquito. You can get a Reaper for free. It just makes you wait for 5 seconds. So just do that. It's kind of like WinRAR, you know how like it's meant to be a free trial, but you kind of just keep it. It's like that. And then you can get all sorts of free VSTs, and they're just things you download. There'll be there's a long rabbit hole that you can go down. I'll try and spare you the rabbit hole. Download Reaper, then figure out the piano roll, and get a couple instruments. Get maybe like an organ or piano or a bass guitar. I'm trying to remember what the name of this mosquito's annoying me. I'm trying to remember what the name of this thing is. IK Multimedia is the name of the place that makes it, and they've got one called Modo Drums. That's the one I first used. That's free in a sort of castrated version, and you can use like a couple of the presets, and then they've got this long list of grooves that you can kind of just drag in, and then you can go into the drum roll, the piano roll, and you can tweak the way it works. I'll tell you what, I'm going to recommend you a channel to go watch. Watch a channel called Stevie McLaughlin. He's a guy I think he's from Northern Ireland, and he works on he makes a lot of progressive metal kind of stuff. He's very into that kind of sound. So it's quite aligned with what I like. And he just goes through Reaper, and he'll show you the exact process of his process, beginning to end. He's got one video about the drums in particular, and he goes so much more in depth into the drums than I do. He separates everything out into separate tracks and then starts mixing each track. I don't do any of that. I kind of just slap stuff together, and that's something that apparently is a problem with the way that I do stuff, is I kind of slapdash things, and then I'm so quick to move on to the next thing and get one thing done that I don't give things the time and care that they deserve. So, but that's because I'm mainly doing demos for my album at the moment. But anyway, listen to some Stevie McLaughlin. It's a great channel to just sort of fall asleep to, or to just have on while you're in bed and like winding down. Very, very friendly person, very nice to follow. He's very easy to follow as well, and he gives you a real look into the creation of the full song. He does song by song, so he did like a 5-part series where it was like making an 80s style hard rock song, and it's all the little details, like him coming up with the ideas, thinking, oh, this could work, and then doing things that way. So he builds his songs out like that. I tend to jam my songs out and let the jam come together, and I record the whole song in one take. Either approach works, or you can go the complete other way and you can start sampling stuff, and you can do things that way if you want. It's a real playground for experimentation, especially if you're coming at this from a different background other than music. Or maybe say you were classically trained in violin as a kid, or whatever, and you didn't really like doing that at the time, but you kind of remember little bits here and there, and you're like, yeah, I wouldn't mind getting back into it. Not as a serious thing, but I'll give it a go. You could get back into it, and you might come at it from a different angle, And I think it's interesting to see what people do when they leave their comfort zone. And like at some point, music wasn't my comfort zone, and I experimented, and I put my foot forward into it, and I created stuff that was very, very harsh and brittle. And looking back, my oldest stuff is better than the stuff I made after I started to learn a little bit, because I started to create more songs with grooves and stuff compared to what I was doing before, which was kind of these ambient soundscapes, which were quite good actually. If I look back at them, they're actually quite good. I didn't know what keys were. I didn't know what chords really were. I could barely play an A minor. I barely knew how to do music in general. I was basically just compiling sounds and just having fun with it. And as I did that more and more, I started to learn more and more. And that's what I think you should do. Just go out there and try stuff. And, you know, if you're a musician, do the opposite. Go try making some films, because it'll be useful for you, for your music videos and stuff. And if you're in film, it'll be useful to learn music so you can make scores. That's originally why I got into music, was so that I could create scores for my films. Do stuff that puts you out of your comfort zone, and you'll find a new comfort zone for yourself. And, you know, have fun with it, because that's what it's all about. So I think I'm going to finish the video here, and I'm going to wrap up by just saying I've got a album that I'm working on at the moment called Decisions in Another Language, which is all about something that happened last year, which I'll maybe get into at some point. But the album is all about that from a more, you know, melancholic, artsy-fartsy sort of perspective. And I've got 7 songs and about 45 minutes of music. So as I said, I kind of like my prog rock, kind of krautrock stuff. So there's a lot of 7, 8, 9-minute songs in there. I would love to work with some musicians, maybe like over email or something. So if you are a musician, what I'll do is I'll upload the album to this channel in its current state, and you can have a look at it. And if you're interested in being on it, just let me know. Send an email to this email. I'm probably not going to put text, I'll probably forget. But it'll be I'll try and put it in the description or something like that. Yeah, I'd love to have people on it. I'd love to form a community around music as well, and make this a bit of a channel about music and film, because at the moment I've gone very deep into the film, which is one half of my my creativity, and music is my other half. Obviously, I like to write stories as well, so maybe I'll do something with that sometime. I used to be really big into writing books and stuff. I always used to, when I was a kid and I was in school, I would always, during lunch hour, I would go to the library, and I would just sit in the library every single day, just typing like that all the time. And I'd be making up these stupid stories. There was one there was this guy called Terry Terrible. He was basically Horrid Henry, but like Family Guy to Simpsons. Terry Terrible was Family Guy compared to Horrid Henry as the Simpsons. So it was basically just an edgy Horrid Henry, written by a 10-year-old. I managed to do 100 pages where there was this like Icelandic mafia who were kidnapping children to put them into this private school, which was kind of like a prison where they warped people's minds to do something. I can't remember what. It was fun, you know, and that's what creativity is meant to be. It's an expression of the human mind, and it's fun. It's a hobby, and it's entertainment at the same time. It's not just entertaining to watch creativity be displayed to you. It's also fun to create, and I love doing that, and I'm going to do it hopefully until the day I die. So that's going to be good. Yep. All right. Goodbye. Nah, yeah. Video's not over yet. Not over yet. But maybe I should have moved it back here. Watch. Imagine I did that whole video and it should have been here instead, or it should have been like over here, or maybe over here, maybe over here, maybe over here, maybe over here, or maybe it shouldn't have had me in it at all. It should have just been like that. Right. That was This right here is House of Parliament. It was the only shot I could get because I'm just recording this on my own, see, so I didn't want to like put it really far away and then, you know, someone comes along and speeds off with it. I thought I would do a little bit of a video just about Central London and my thoughts on Central London, because I don't like this place. I don't like the centre of this city. And it's probably that I don't like the centre of any city. I'm not someone that's keen on the hustle and the bustle. I mean, it's all right to once in a while, right? But whenever I've worked in Central London, I've had to come in every day. I genuinely despise it. You know, the whole process of getting up early and then getting on the train and it's packed because it's rush hour and you've got all these guys in suits, you know, some reading like newspapers, and that's all right. I don't mind them reading newspapers. And you kind of look around, you see everyone's like on the phone, and then you think like, oh God, we're all on our phones. And then I think, well, fuck, I'm on my phone as well. So there's not really any way of criticizing that aspect without being a hypocrite. And part of who Jonny Mozza is for this film going forwards is someone who would complain about those things in a hypocritical way. And it's something that I, you know, do feel deep down, but it's also something that I'm aware enough about that if I was to start talking about it, you know, people could turn it back around on me and go, well, you know, you go on your phone, you know, you use YouTube, you know, you're on your phone listening to music or scrolling through Reddit or whatever. But I think what annoys me about Central London, that's one aspect of it, the hustle and the bustle, but it's not everything. I think what particularly irritates me is just how large and oppressive a lot of it feels. Like if you go to Piccadilly Circus, for instance, just this, I mean, you know how they've got the Piccadilly Circus advert thing on the corner, and that's like a big advertising, that's a big tourist thing. People come from all around the world to see that thing. It's an advert. You can see adverts anywhere you go. You can't get away from adverts. So why are you going somewhere just to see the adverts? I don't quite understand that. And Piccadilly Circus in particular, I think, encompasses a lot of what I dislike about Central London, because it's got quite small roads, but it's got these extremely tall buildings. And sure, the architecture is nice. The architecture is really lovely. Like around here, you see that's the bottom of the House of Parliament. And, you know, it does look amazing. And I wish we could get back to that kind of architecture rather than, you know, like new builds and gentrification that comes around and makes everything look exactly the same. I would like us to go back to this style of thing. I love seeing like a Tesco Express that used to be some kind of like ornate looking building with like really intricate stonework on the outside. I like seeing that, but I don't know. I get that it's not, you know, not necessarily profitable, but the will isn't there, obviously, because money is one aspect of it. But it's not like this government couldn't be putting forward some kind of program to ensure that there are some really nice looking buildings around. In fact, Angela Rayner recently, I did a video about it for another series that I do called Phineas King, where I dress up as a really sort of interviewer kind of guy, and he's a little bit stupid. And what frustrates me about what Angela Rayner's doing is she's taken the word beautiful out of the requirements for new buildings. And it's not like that was being followed beforehand. So I get why she's taken it out, because it's not being used, it's not useful, because also what counts as beautiful is subjective. But I think no one would agree that a new build estate is a beautiful thing. No one would agree that, like, you know, that exact same copy-pasted thing everywhere. And I've seen it in other cities as well. Like, I went to Milan last year, and, you know, I was looking at all the buildings in the center. I was around Buenos Aires in Milan, and it's a really beautiful little spot. And what I really liked about the architecture was just how ornate and Italian it felt. It felt like Italy, right? And some of the buildings there are like Central Station is, oh my God, it's awe-inspiring how beautiful it is. But then you get out into the more like suburban parts, like their equivalent of like Zone 5 and Zone 6. But in London, you've got zones. So we're in Zone 1 now, which is Westminster. And then, you know, you go out to Zone 2, and that's like Chelsea and stuff like that. And you go out to Zone 3, and that's Hammersmith. And you go out to Zone 4, and that's like Hounslow. And then you go out to Zone 5, and that's like Feltham, Heathrow. And then you go out to Zone 6, which is just, you're basically in the countryside by that point. So in Milan, when I went there, and I went to the equivalent of about Zone 5 or Zone 6, we started seeing the exact same buildings everywhere. These, you know, copy-pasted, exactly the same, brown exterior, the smooth look to it with paneling. Sometimes they pretend to put brick over it, like they have this painted looking brick thing on it. Sometimes they don't even bother doing that. What annoys me about that is that those buildings aren't going to last particularly long. They're going to last like 70, 80 years, when they could have invested that money in the long run, and they could have made a building that could have lasted for 500 years or more. I'm not expecting every building to look like that, to have that level of historical significance, but I am expecting every building to at least look decent and complement the surrounding area and complement the culture of whatever country it happens to be in. You get some parts now, like some parts of Milan, I was looking around and it just looked exactly the same as bloody, like, Harlesden. Have you ever heard of Harlesden? No? It's a shithole, right? And it's a shithole because there's no culture to the architecture. I'm not talking about culture of the people, I'm talking about culture of the architecture. Everything just looks the same. And there's no personality to the buildings, there's no feeling that any care was put into this. Like the architect is, he's getting paid, he's probably just adjusted his old blueprint ever so slightly for, oh, this building's gonna be a little bit bigger because the plot of land's a little bit larger. And we do need to be building more, houses, for instance. We have a big housing shortage in this country. And I understand, going back to the Angela Rayner thing, that she has taken out the thing for beautiful because she wants to build more houses, and more power to her. I really hope that she does do that, but I don't think she actually is, because the will isn't there. Because at the moment, the fact that there is a housing shortage is beneficial to landlords and housing developers, because they are able to sell their product for more because there's an artificial shortage. We could be building more houses, we could be doing that, but we're not. And the reason that we're not is because there's money involved. And obviously that's the way that it is, and that's the way that it's always going to be, and there's no change in that. But what we could do, at the very least, is, I don't know, I don't have any solutions. I don't have anything like that, because I'm sure every solution has been tried and tested and failed. I mean, in the Soviet Union, for instance, they, after World War II, they had a huge initiative where they built the commie blocks, that's what they were called, and they built so many of them. I think they made enough spaces to house like 10 million people. I don't know the specifics, but they built loads and loads of houses, and they built them in a very efficient way. And I don't necessarily want them to do exactly that. I want them to do something similar to that, but I want them to build those style of buildings, but I also want them to make those buildings look good. I want them to have a feel where they don't feel oppressive, like a lot of the buildings in central London are able to do. And the reason that they're able to do that is because they're all so tall, and they're also, like, you can't see the sky really when you go somewhere. Like, the sky is this thin strip in like when you look up, and you've just got these giant buildings on either side, and it's just like that. That's the way that it is. And I have one solution, which might be a stupid solution. What I think they should do is set aside a big area, somewhere up north, somewhere that's coastal, and take that plot of land, maybe like 50 square kilometers, and make it so that, not 50 square kilometers, maybe like 200 square kilometers, the size of like Birmingham-ish, and put some regulations down that are the same kind of regulations that they have in Hong Kong. Where in Hong Kong, there's a lot less restriction about what you can build and how you can build it and where you can build it and that kind of thing. The Country Planning Act of 1947, I want to say, introduced the idea of planning permission. And with that, it certainly is good in that, say QPR wants to come and build a training ground in your local area, and bulldoze your green spaces to do this, to build this training ground, so they can then introduce dozens and dozens of multi-millionaires, if their Lamborghinis clogging up the roadways. I get that it's good for that. No, you can go past if you want. I'm just filming a thing for just talking about central London. Just someone that is walking past. I get why the Country Planning Act is good for that, but I think it comes into an issue now when all land is owned already. There's very little unowned land. There's very little space to expand without putting some actual thought into what we're doing. And because we've got developers against developers, private interests against other private interests against public interests, we are at a standstill and we can't actually do anything. And the reason that we can't do anything is in part because we have so many regulations. And I'm not someone that's anti-regulation. I'm not like a libertarian in that regard. But I feel like if we want to solve the housing crisis, which we need to do now, soon, ASAP, right? The best way to do that would be to set aside a big space of land and allow developers to build it up and turn it into a new city. We need about I think it's 3 million houses we need to build. So what's that? Maybe it's double the size of Birmingham. We need a city double the size of Birmingham. But instead of doing that, they're trying to build like, you know, a little estate here and a little estate there, you know, 2,000 houses here, 2,000 houses here, and all these little towns that are then blowing up and becoming something that the residents themselves object to. And everything's kind of becoming a bit the same because we've got these developers that are putting up these exact same looking copy-paste new builds, which is something that in this film, Jonny Mozza's Lessons in Confidence, he's going to be discussing what I'm talking about now, but probably a little bit more, like less. I feel like I'm semi-well-rounded. Wait for the comments to be like, he thinks he's semi-well-rounded in his argument. He's a fucking idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? And I don't claim to know what I'm talking about, but I can at least see the issue, and I can at least try and propose something. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But we need to do something. It doesn't matter what that is, but we need to build these houses, and we need to get them built. And I think we need to build them as well in a way that doesn't alienate the population and turn. Because we not only need to build more houses, but with those houses we need to build services like schools and hospitals and shops and you know, entertainment, you know, like culture, pubs and restaurants and laser tag. if you wanted to play laser tag, you know, you've got to have stuff there for people to live. Have you ever been to Milton Keynes? Milton Keynes was the idea from it was the brainchild of I'm not sure what the saying is, of Harold Wilson, who was the Prime Minister in the 60s and 70s. And he got this, he didn't obviously build it himself, but he got this off the ground, and Milton Keynes went from being this tiny little village to this, it's like 500,000 population city. And if you look at it on Google Maps, drop the pin anywhere on Google Maps and try and find a shop, try and find a bar, try and find a restaurant, try and find some semblance of culture, of life. You can't. All you see is the exact same looking house connected by these A roads. So everything there is very car oriented, and we also need to be moving away from car oriented communities and trying to push people towards public transport. We need to also do that in a way that somehow doesn't make everyone's life worse. Like, for instance, you know, what are they called? People with tradesmen, they need a van to get from A to B, and they get fucked over by ULEZ, which one particular guy in there is very passionate about. I'm quite anti-ULEZ, but I'm not anti the idea of cracking down on unnecessary driving. I'm not against that inherently. And I've seen Paris has this idea, this law they've put in, where if you drive into Paris with a like a 4x4 or like some huge vehicle, you don't need like something like that. I think it's like you're either just not allowed in, or you're charged like some extortionate rate. I think that would be better than what Sadiq Khan is doing with ULEZ, which is basically just to punish the poor who don't have the public transport connections. And the reason they don't have those public transport connections is because Mayor of London's not putting them out there. He did something called Superloop, which was basically just, he added like 8 new bus routes. Good for him. But he has to brand it in a way so it makes it look like he's made some huge change. He hasn't. He's changed the names of some things. And now he's trying to change the names of all the lines on the overground. And that's costing a load of money for nothing. That we don't need that. That money could be going towards actually putting in new bus routes or building a new train line or at least, you know, improving a station, maybe making step-free access in more stations. It could do something. Whereas what it's doing now is just, it's punishing the poor. Meanwhile, people that can afford to pay ULEZ can just continue to pollute. Like, I'm not someone that's anti-regulation or anti, you know, environmentalism or anything like that. I'm very for these causes, and we need to actually be doing something about them. But the way that the politicians are going around them about them at the moment, I find significant issue with. And I think that it's turning our cities into these lifeless husks where everyone is just getting to their job, getting back, they don't have that what's called a third place, so like a cafe or a pub or something like that, where they go regularly. Like in the past, you know, you'd be at home, you go to work, and you get back from work, and then you might go to the pub, right? So you have that third place. We don't have that third place anymore. The equivalent of a third place is going down to my local park and doing some filming and just getting some little shots of whatever I want, like some flowers, or if I find some like nice view, I get that. Or maybe I do one of these little talks to camera or something like that. Or, you know, occasionally I go to the open mics, and the open mics are a serious bastion of community that I've found. I'm sure there's other bastions of community out there. This is the one that's spoken to me, and I think it's really beautiful what can actually be done when people can actually come together and form a community and form a connection with one another in a city that feels like it's trying to rip people apart and prevent that kind of human experience. That's why they're building things that have no soul to them and no personality or no, you know, culture to the architecture, because why does that matter when we can build it cheaper? If we need to get all these things done, let's make them look as shit as possible, because it's the cheapest way of getting it done, you know. Or maybe we'll put some like I don't know what it's called, like this wallpaper kind of brickwork, and you can tell it from a mile away. Or maybe what they'll do, they'll put like one like layer of bricks on the outside if they're feeling fancy. Or the worst one is, you know, when they've got those balconies that are just like screwed in with bolts and stuff, and they're not actually like, they're freestanding balconies. I hate them. I went to a friend's house and he had one of those, and like every time I went out for a cigarette, I was like this. And then the second the cigarette's done, get back inside, get back inside, that's terrifying. Yeah, I think, oh, hang on, I'm not gonna be in focus there. I think that's gonna be it. I think that's all you need to know. You can go past if you want. Just recording a video about central London, about, you know, all the issues and that.
All right, okay.
You know, like, about how the housing situation, how we kind of need to build new houses, but at the same time we're building these kind of copy-paste new builds and that kind of thing. It's kind of ripping semi-communities apart, you know, that kind of thing. It's generally about that.
Yeah,
that's why I figure have Parliament in the background.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. I've seen in Glasgow, places like that.
Is it?
But we all need new housing.
Exactly. You have a good day. Cheers, nice. Just gonna make sure I'm still recording. I hope I am. Yeah, I am. I think with that, she agreed with me. So you can see that the public, or with a sample size of 1, do agree with this. I think the other woman said she agreed with it as well. I think everyone agrees with it. Everyone I've spoken to, no one sort of says that this is fine, what's going on, that this is just okay. Everyone is on side. But what we disagree on is the specifics. And somehow we need to sort that out. And I don't have the solution to that. And I'm not going to try and come up with a solution again, because I've done that. I spend my life, I feel like, coming up with solutions for these guys. Not that they ever listen to them. You know, I'm not expecting them to, because I'm just me. I'm just a guy with a camera, and I can do what I can do, and I enjoy doing it. And thank you very much for joining me for this very long, very rambly talk. I hope it made some semblance of sense, and I hope that we can form some kind of discussion in the comments, have some back and forth. If you disagree with anything that I've said, please pull me up on it. If I've gotten something wrong, pull me up on it. Or if you just have a different approach or opinion, then please share it in the comments, and we can have some kind of back and forth. I might not respond to everything. I do like having a bit of a debate, but I don't like doing it all the time. So I might respond every now and then. I might get sick of it, and I might move on to another thing. So don't wait for a bit for me to respond. I'll probably take some time, because I'm also doing the film as well, Jonny Mozza's Lessons in Confidence, which is going to be discussing these details, not in more detail, but it's going to be showing different approaches to it. And I think I would like Jonny Mozza to be someone that, you know, has the right idea about what the problem is, but has no idea about how to fix it, which is kind of me. I mean, I've managed to talk for however long this video is. I feel like it's been about half an hour about this topic. And it's a topic that means a lot to me, because I've lived in cities all my life, and I've seen the way that things have changed, not like drastically. It's not like I'm old, but like I'm still a young person. So it's not like I've seen drastic shifts, but whenever I speak to someone that's older, they say that it's gotten so much worse, and that things used to be so much closer knit than it is now, and I would like to see a return to that. That's essentially the point I've been trying to spiral around, and now I think, you know those little penny machines, you drop the penny in and it spirals round and round and round and round and round. I think dropping it into the hole is basically just saying, we need to do something. And I don't know exactly what that is. One, it's build houses. Two, we need to support communities, and we need to be putting in more services for these communities. We need to be improving the NHS, we need to be improving workers' rights. We need to be improving the public transport system, and not sitting back and going, oh, we've got one of the best public transport systems in the world, we don't need to make it any better. Yeah, if it's one of the best public transport systems in the world, isn't that an indictment of the fucking problem in the world? You know, it's an issue, and we need to be working on it, and I feel like we're procrastinating as a society through, you know, partisan politics and stupid non-issues that are used to stir up culture wars, and we're not discussing things that actually matter. And you know, it's not like I'm above all of that, and it's not like I'm, you know, trying to look down on everyone who's like I'm better, but it is what it is. For the third time, thank you so much for watching. I've been Joshua Morrison. Watch Jonny Mozza's Lessons in Confidence when that comes out. If you subscribe to the channel, you're going to see loads and loads of more things about these kind of topics, whatever I want to talk about. I might do some about music, I might do some about the film, I might do some about this kind of politics, or my thoughts on current events, stuff like that. It's just a place for me to express myself, and that's what YouTube's meant to be. I mean, what was the original subtitle for YouTube? Is YouTube broadcast yourself. That's what I'm doing. So thank you very much for taking part for the fourth time now, and I'll see you around, yeah?